Hello and welcome to the analysis of the Hindu newspaper dated February 11th, 2023. In this video, we are going to talk about two important newspaper articles which are going to be very important, very significant for the civil services examination. So let's start this video with the first important newspaper article. So this particular newspaper article talks about the index of industrial production, right? IIP data, which is released by the NSO, that is National Statistical Office. So we are going to talk about what is there in this particular data, which is a monthly data, and then we will talk about what exactly is index of industrial production, right? So this kind of article becomes important for the GS paper 3, that is Indian economy and issues relating to planning, mobilization of resources, growth, development and employment. Let's start with the context and then we'll understand the IIP, right? So India's industrial output growth moderated to 4.3% in December 2022. So this data is regarding the December 2022. Now in the month of November 2022, the growth was 7.3%. Now it has moderated or decreased to 4.3%. And this has happened despite mining and electricity production rising at around 10% for the second successive month, as manufacturing growth faltered from 6.1% to November to 2.6%. Now, why this kind of data is important for us? This kind of data is important for us for knowing what is happening on around in the industries, and this data is also important for the government to determine what is the GDP growth and what are the growth perspectives that are going to happen, because industries drive most of the growth, right, in the country. So now what exactly is this index of industrial production data which has been released? So basically it is an indicator that measures the changes in the volumes of the production of industrial products during a given period. So basically a pool of data is created based on various industries or various sectors. Now these sectors can be divided into broad sectors and use-based sectors, and all of the data is collected from these sectors and then that is compiled and we form what is known as index of industrial production, and then the growth numbers are determined. Now these basically sectors are divided into two sectors: broad-based sectors and the use-based sectors. So broad-based sectors means mining, manufacturing and electricity, which are very broad in range, and then we have the use-based sectors, which are the sectors which are used by the common people, right, like basic goods, capital goods and intermediate goods. All right, so these all composite figures contribute to what is known as the growth perspectives in the index of industrial production. Now this particular data is compiled and published monthly by the National Statistical Office. Now its National Statistical Office is a part of Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, right? And it considers the base year for the IIP, that is Index of Industrial Production, to be 2011-2012, right? So this is what is known as the IIP, which determines the growth prospects of the industries, right? And what is its significance? So first thing is that it is used by the government agencies including Ministry of Finance and the Reserve Bank of India for the policy making purposes. So that is why this particular data is very important. And apart from it, IIP remains extremely relevant for the calculation of quarterly and advanced GDP estimates, and that is why the IIP is very important. Now this IIP consists of basically 8 core sectors, right? So now 8 core sectors are very important for the calculation of the IIP. Now these core sectors in the terms of the decreasing numbers or the decreasing importance have been mentioned here, right? So the very important sector is the refinery products, then we will count the electricity, then we will count the steel, coal, then we will crude oil, natural gas, then cement, then the fertilizers. Now the 8 core sectors according to their weightage has been mentioned over there, right? So the weightage of the refinery products is going to be the highest, then in the decreasing order, then it's electricity, steel, coal, and subsequently the fertilizers, right? Now these comprise 40.27% of the weight of the items included in the index of industrial production, and that is why these 8 core sectors, which are very important for the economy, are very important, and the growth in these sectors is basically going to increase the growth prospects in the country or the economy, right? So this is it regarding the IIP. We have talked about the growth prospects, we have talked about the figures as well. So this is it regarding this particular newspaper article. Let's now head to the next important newspaper article. Now this particular newspaper article talks about a writ petition and what are the reasons for the dismissal of this particular writ petition. All right, and this writ petition relates to Victoria Gowri, who is now going to be made a judge in the High Court, right? So basically this kind of article is important for the GS paper 2, that is structure, organization and functioning of the judiciary, right? So let's first understand the context of it, and then we will talk about the background and what are the reasons for the dismissal. We'll also talk about some of the constitutional provisions relating to it, right? So the Supreme Court on Friday in a 9-page order explained that suitability of a candidate cleared by the collegium for the appointment as a judge in a constitutional court cannot be subject of judicial review. Basically what we are going to talk about is judicial review, and the second we are talking about the suitability or eligibility of the candidate, and then we will also talk about the background regarding this particular case. So what is this case? So the collegium comprising Chief Justice D.Y. Chandrachud, Justice Sanjay Kishan Kaul and Justice K.M. Joseph had proposed the names of the Gowri. Now they formed the collegium of 3 judges. First is the Chief Justice, and there are 2 other justices, right? Now they had proposed the name of Victoria Gowri and 4 others for the elevation to the High Court on January 17, and the center had notified her appointment, that is appointment of Victoria Gowri, on February 6. Now this created much of the ruckus. Now what happened is that the protesting advocates there were some protests by the advocates in the Madras High Court. Then they highlighted that this particular candidate, that is Victoria Gowri, had political affiliations, and to her own admission she was the General Secretary of the Bharatiya Janata Party Mahila Morcha. Now the Gowri has also received criticism for what has been described as hate speech against a religious minority, particularly Muslims and Christians, owing to some of her tweets in the Twitter, right? So this was the basic allegation by some of the advocates of the Madras High Court, right? And they wanted that her appointment her elevation to the post of the judge of the Madras High Court should not be there, right? So this was basically the case regarding it, background regarding it. Now the Supreme Court said that the question whether the Miss Gowri was fit to be a judge was outside the ambit of the judicial review, right? And they also said that the bench distinguished between the suitability and eligibility of a candidate. So basically the writ petition talked about the fact that she was not suitable for the candidature and for the appointment, and at the same time they mentioned the case of eligibility of the previous judgment, right? So basically the Supreme Court has said that there is a difference between the eligibility. Now eligibility is mentioned in Article 217 clause 2 of the Constitution. Now suitability is the domain which the collegium considers, and it involved a procedure designed to test the fitness of a person, including her character, integrity, competence and the knowledge. Now eligibility and suitability are basically 2 different aspects. This is the second thing that the Supreme Court said. And apart from it, the judges' pledge and duties transcended religious, linguistic, regional or sectional diversities, and the courts were open and the judges spoke by giving reasons in writing for their decisions, and that is why they dismissed the petition, right? So now what basically is judicial review? So judicial review is a type of court proceeding in which the judges review the lawfulness of a decision or action made by a public body, right? So now the judicial review is considered as a basic structure of the Constitution, and it was basically taken up in the Indira Gandhi versus Raj Narayan case 1975. And the judicial review is also called the interpretational and observer roles of the Indian judiciary, and the suo motu cases and the public interest litigation with the discontinuation of the principle of locus standi have allowed the judiciary to intervene in many public issues even when there is no complaint from the aggrieved party. And basically, if we talk about the judicial review, then judicial review is of three types: reviews on the legislative actions, review of the administrative action, and then we have the review of the judicial decisions, right? Basically, the three organs of the government are basically challenged in, or all the decisions of them are challenged in the judicial review. Now let's talk about the review of the judicial decisions, which is the case in this particular case. Now the review is used to correct or make any changes in the previous decisions made by the judiciary itself, right? So this is the judicial review, which reviews three kinds of things, that is the legislative actions, administrative actions, and we have the judicial actions or judicial decisions, right? So these are basically the judicial review. Now let's talk about the constitutional provisions for the judicial review. Now the judicial review emerged in the Indira Gandhi versus Raj Narayan case 1975, and that is why there is no direct and express provision in the constitution empowering the courts to invalidate the laws, but the constitution has imposed definite limitations upon each of the organs, and the transgression of which would make the law void, right? You cannot go beyond your powers. This is the basic essence. Now the court is entrusted with the task of deciding whether or any of the constitutional limitations have been transgressed or not, and to give light to it, we have three kinds. We have the Article 372(1), which establishes the judicial review of the pre-constitutional legislation, that is the legislation which was formed before the constitution. And then we have the Article 13, which declares that any law which contravenes any of the provisions of the part of the fundamental rights shall be void. And then we have the Articles 32 and 226, which entrust the roles of the protector and the guarantor of the fundamental rights to the Supreme Court and the High Court. And this particular PIL was basically a writ petition under the Article 32, right, in this particular case of Victoria Gowrie, right? So this is it regarding this particular newspaper article, and this is it for the day. Thank you from my side. Do like and share the video and subscribe to this channel. Have a good day. Bye.